In today's podcast, I'm going to be talking about my new bench I've literally just finished building. So this is, I guess you could kind of call it a modular bench type of thing. It's built from 22mm plywood. I did initially buy 3 sheets. I've got a good bit of plywood left over. I think the basic bench itself, you could probably get away with maybe 2 sheets. I haven't quite worked it out yet, but I think you probably could get away with 2 sheets of plywood, which obviously brings the cost down dramatically, but it does just depend what you want to do with the bench. So the idea behind this bench was that, first and foremost, it was for myself to solve my own little problems and issues that I have in this shop or shed, if you will. As I started building the bench, I did think to myself, rather than build it just for myself, kind of make it compatible for other people, if other people should want to build it. So what you can see at the moment is the beefed up version. Again, if you are listening to this, it might be worth you coming over to YouTube and watching this video if you're interested, of course, but I will try to, cater for the guys that are listening. As I said, this is the beefed up version. So the difference between this version, the beefed up version, and the light version, shall we say, is that on this version we'll have a removable apron, and the feet have actually been beefed up as well. So this was more to cater for some wheels that I'm going to eventually put on this, most likely, but I am, because to be honest, I don't think that this bench is going to have a lot of time out of the shop, but I did still want that option. So what I did fail to mention, I think, is that this bench slots together. There's no screws or bolts or wedges or anything like that keeping it together. The apron is held in by 2 bench pups right now. I am going to add a further 2 bench pups to it when I am using it. And the apron actually sits on 2 little cleats. These are just 90-degree cleats. It's just basically to take the weight of it. So again, if you are watching this on YouTube, I am going to quickly show you what I'm talking about with the removable apron. So basically, when you're putting the apron in or taking the apron out, what I've been doing, and it's been working quite well, is getting just one of my regular pegs, what I use for my Roman workbench, or what I was using for my Nicholson bench, and what I'm probably going to use for this bench as well, is whack one in the middle, and I'm going to push the bench pup out. So there's one bench pup, and there's the other one. And then basically you just take the weight and the middle one comes out. And there is the removable apron out of the way. So you should be able to see the 2 little cleats I was talking about. So there's a cleat here and obviously at the other side. And basically this just stops the apron from moving down. And with the apron moving down, the only other way it can go is outward, and that's what the pegs are for. I might actually add some more pegs, maybe a couple in the middle. I do believe that'll add an extra bit of stability to it. In all fairness, it is actually pretty sturdy. I have to be honest, I'm a little bit surprised at how sturdy it is. It's like, really well. Although on YouTube and a couple of other social media platforms, I have had a little bit of criticism. Just today, there was a guy that was saying it moves all over. It does move a little bit, I can't deny that, but one of the things the guy failed to recognise, and I failed to recognise it as well, it actually got pointed out to me, is that the floor in this shed moves, and it wasn't until someone pointed it out. Now, you've got to bear in mind that when I did actually build this shed or workshop, whatever you want to call it, I never intended for the floor to be left the way it's been left. My intention was to basically lap over all of the joints with some more fiberboard, basically. So I don't know, I was maybe going to hide down, I think it was 1/2 inch, or maybe, yeah, I think it was 1/2 inch. So I was going to come over the top of this roller with some 1/2 inch and just lap all the joints. But, you know, this is me, and I just haven't got around to doing it. You know, it's just one of those things. But as I said, I wasn't aware it was moving so much when I was carrying out tasks. You know, it's not just this bench, it does it with the Nicholson bench, which is behind the camera. So the bench, it comes in, how many components have we got? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it comes in 6 components. Obviously the apron's optional. I sound like I'm selling this thing, don't I? There is probably going to be plans. I don't think I'm going to be charging for the plans. There will kind of be like, how to put it, a donation basis. If you think the bench is worth it and the plans are worth it, you can leave as a donation. If not, you know, the plans are going to be free. So the bench comes in 6 components, as I've already stated. So we have the bottom, the 2 sides, and the 2 legs. So what I've actually done to beef this up is that I added 2 extra pieces of ply to the feet. So the one inside, I thought that was necessary, and that's just going to take some of the weight of the shelf, because obviously I will be stacking things on this. This is obviously going to be storage, plus it's going to help to weigh the bench down. So speaking of weight, while I do remember the bench, when I weighed it before I actually got me bathroom scales down, and I put all the components on top of the scales, and it came in at £150. So the whole bench is £150. Obviously this is the beefed up version, so I'm not sure what the slimmed down version would be. So if you're wondering what the slimmed down version would be, it would be obviously 5 components. I don't think I would bother with the outside piece on the legs, both sides, and possibly, depending on what you're doing with it, you could have another cutout in the opposite side. You probably can't see on the camera, but there's a cutout where I am at the moment, and on the other side it's just one straight, or it's one full piece of ply that's obviously just been cut to size. So it does really depend on what you want to do with the bench. When I started designing it and really thinking about it, and it's basically taken over my life for the last week, it's all I've thought about, nothing else. But one of the things was that whether it be someone who just wanted to take it onto a job site, you know, or into somebody's house, whatever, and use it as a kind of assembly table or an MFT table, that's doable. So if you are going to use it in that sense, you could do another cutout. Obviously this is going to lighten it even more, and this might suit you down to the ground. As I said, I wanted this to be kind of user friendly for everyone, whether you're a power tool woodworker or whether you're more like me, more of a hand tool woodworker, although obviously I have been using a track saw of late. And even if it's just occasionally where you might only be doing the odds and sods of hand tool woodworking, isn't it just nice to get this wherever you've got it and just put it in? So as I was saying to you before, it is very easy to put in. So basically once it's sitting on the couple of little cleats and it's lined up, I'm going to try and show you on the camera what I'm doing here. So once it's sitting on the cleats, which it is now, you just pop a peg in the middle and that takes the weight. Once that middle peg's in, you can basically walk away from it. And then I'm just going to add the bench dogs. So the bench dogs, or the Veritas bench pups as they are, these work out really well. And I'm going to buy 2 more of these and I'm going to add them to the bench. So I'm going to add 2 more to the middle sections, not quite the middle, but you're going to like miss a hole either side and put them there. As it is, I mean, the apron itself, it is pretty steady. I'm not going to demonstrate on this video, but if you want to take a look on social media, on YouTube Shorts, on my Instagram, on my Facebook, I have shown this. I just posted a video today of me sewing on this, playing on it, like edge planing with the apron, and it's totally fine. And I do believe that once I get some more bench pups, another 2 bench pups, I think that's going to steady it up even more. I mean, as it is, it is pretty sturdy, and I am happy with it. One of my concerns, I must admit, is that over time, these holes may compress it outward, and it may give some slack onto the apron, so the apron may have started to gain some play in it. I don't know if that's something that's going to be really problematic or not. This ply is 22mm thick, so it's not like I'm using, you know, 1/2 inch or, you know, even 3/4 inch. I did go for the 22. I did debate on using 25, but I kind of, you know, I thought it was a bit much and it wasn't needed. So I think only time will tell with the bench. Obviously the main feature of this bench is that I can literally take it apart. I don't need no screwdrivers or drills or spanner. It will just literally come apart, pull it apart. It's going to be apart in like a couple of minutes, if that. So that's what I do like about it. The dog holes, my spacings, what I've went 10 inches apart going down the length of the bench, and I have made it 8 inches apart going the width of the bench. So I know the MFT tables are, I think they're like, is it 96? I want to say 96mm apart, the spacings of the whole centre to centre. I personally think that's too many for me. That is, obviously I know there's a reason why it's 96 centres. I can't remember the reason, but there is a reason why they're at 96 centres. For me, that's far too much. It's far too many. I really don't see the point in doing that for what I do. The majority of the work that I'm going to be doing on this bench is going to be with hand tools, with the exception of using a track saw to do multiple cuts. And, you know, to use a track saw on here, it's, you know, it's not a big deal. I don't need a lot of pegs. I'm no track saw expert, and I've got a little bit of gear. It's enough for me to get me by. It's enough to ease, you know, the workload of my back, and that's all I'm concerned about. A few of the things I wanted when I was designing this bench were non-negotiable. So one of the things, and I did talk about this in a previous podcast, was that I wanted to be able to use clamps on the sides. So basically, on this side where I've got the apron, you've just seen how I add the apron and take the apron off. So on this side and the two gables, I can use a regular clamp all the way around that if I choose to, which was one of the things I really wanted to have the ability to do. So the Nicholson bench, in its own right, it is a good bench, but you know, I wasn't happy about a lot of things, and one of the main gripes with it was that I really didn't like the fact that I couldn't get a clamp on it. And again, I did talk about this, and I think it was more to do with the fact that I'd used the Roman workbench for so long, and I was just able to clamp things to the sides, which wasn't uncommon for us to do. If I wasn't doing that, I was using holdfasts. So while I'm on the subject of holdfasts, that has hurt us a little bit. It's hurt my brain because I do like to use a holdfast, and it was kind of either have a thinner bench, keep the cost down, or get a thicker top and you'll be able to use holdfasts. So for me to use holdfasts, I think minimally, I think I'd have to be going at 40mm. That's the least I think you could go. I did try using holdfasts on 1 inch, and they kind of did work a little bit, but I think minimally you're looking at 40mm to use a holdfast and to get a decent bite. So I toyed with this idea. I must have toyed with it for about maybe like 2 days. In the space of 2 days, I didn't really do a lot to the bench. I just toyed on some sort of way where I could add some material to the bench. One of my thoughts was that I would stick a 1/2 inch sheet of ply on top of this ply, and it was kind of a good idea when I think about it, because I could have just screwed it into place and basically used and abused that top piece of ply, and when it was no longer suitable, I could just take that off and I could go out and I could get another piece of ply and just replace it on top, you know, put some new holes in it, you know, and whatever else. What stopped us, is that if I'd done that, I wouldn't be able to have access to the top of this section of ply, which I found out is pretty important when you're taking it apart and putting it together, because you do need to see what you're doing. And I personally think that if I was trying to put a top on and I couldn't see where the slots are, trying to get it from underneath, I think it would take us absolutely ages and it would be very frustrating. So I come away from that idea, and I have, even though it's still bothering us a little bit, I have kind of just come to terms with the fact that any clamping in the middle of the bench is just going to have to be done with some of these clamps. So these are just track saw clamps. Ironically, I've never used them for the track saw. You know, anyone that uses a track saw will know the majority of the time you don't need to use them. Occasionally you do. I've never come across anything I need to use them for, but then again, I don't use the track saw extensively. So as I said, this is one of the things I'm not overly happy about, but I do think that, you know, I will kind of get over it. On the plus side, I do have 4 of these, so I do have two quick locking ones, and I have two just the hand crank ones. And to be honest, they are quite good for what they are. And the two hand crank ones that I got, these were Veritas ones, and believe it or not, I actually got these before I had a track saw, just to try them out on smaller pieces and whatever else. And I found out that they're absolutely excellent, and these have been used a lot, if I'm honest, and I've tightened them, you know, something rotten on certain things, and they've had a lot of force like thrown onto them, and I have to admit they are sound. There isn't a problem with them. I haven't had a single issue with them. There's been no slipping with them. There's no sign of, you know, wear on the heads or anything like that. So these were a pretty good buy. And as I said, I was using these before I got the track saw, before I was like started to use power tools again. So these were primarily used in all the hand tool woodworking. So they're actually not a bad bit of kit. If you fancy getting some, there is an affiliate link. Click onto it, won't cost you anything, and I get a little kickback, and that's on Amazon. I'm going to try to explain how the whole design works. I don't know if I'm going to do it justice or not, but I am going to try to explain the kind of physics of it and where the design come from. So this design of the workbench, believe it or not, actually come from this tool caddy. So this tool caddy, if you follow us on YouTube or Instagram, you've probably seen this quite some time ago. And this started off like a load of ideas in my head. So since this, which is obviously just a basic tool caddy, my chisels used to sit in the top because I did used to work outside quite a lot. So with us building that and kind of using it and looking at it and thinking about different things, the next thing that kind of came out of that was a box. So again, this was built with hand tools. This box was built with hand tools. I have to admit, this box, it did actually take, you know, a little bit of time. Obviously just using Japanese saws and whatnot, and basically designing it as I went, which I've done with this bench. That's why it's taken us all week to do it. Although I have had a lot of decisions to make, so, you know. So basically this was for a solar generator, so it had lithium cells in here, you know, some 12-volt sockets and USB, and it had an inverter in it, and a plug. So I've since taken all the electrics out, and I'm using the electrics elsewhere, namely in my van. So the way this works, again, if you are listening to this, I'm being an idiot, and I'm you know, I'm kind of trying to shake this little box. So this little box, it is quite stout and sturdy, and it relies on the same sort of principles as this workbench does. Obviously that's where the concept come from. So this box obviously has spawned the concept of my workbench. Before the workbench, there was the seat and bed and the unit in my van. It's the same concept that if I want to right now, I could go to my van and I could rip the whole bed and furniture, anything that's in the back of that, I can have that out in the space of, I don't know, I want to say 10-15 minutes. No screws, no spanners, no nothing like that. And it's the same sort of thing. So just to take this apart and try and explain. So you've got the two side legs, and the two side legs, they slot through the bottom. So the bottom consists of 4 slots in this. On the bench, the bottom consists of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 slots. So basically, the feet have 2 little lips either side, and what this does, if I can get it together, when there's weight applied, obviously it just sits, the bottom shelf section, should we say, sits on those 2 little lips, and it's exactly the same on the other side. So as it is actually still quite flimsy. So even when you put the lid on, it's still quite flimsy. So the magic, or how this works and how it's able to take a lot of force racking, should we say, in woodworking terms, is that we add a side section so basically things are starting to make contact and you're starting to form a 90-degree corner, which obviously when you start to do things like that with sheet material, it starts to pick up rigidity and strength. So even just with the one side, this is actually, you know, it is actually quite strong. Another issue with this is that if you are cutting the slots or the mortises, should we say, and you're sloppy with them, you say you're sloppy with these 2 and you're sloppy with these, what's going to happen is that the top's going to be able to move backwards and forwards. And if the top can move backwards and forwards, and it's exactly the same on the underside, the whole thing's, it's not going to be very stable. So one of the things that you do have to make sure of, if you are intending to build this, when I do release the plans in the build video for it, is that you don't have to necessarily worry too much about a snug fit on the width of the slots or the mortises. I find it's more the length of it. So if you're making good contact at this end and that end of the slots, and it's the same on this side, it physically can't move forward. So if it can't do that on the top and it can't do that on the bottom, you're going to have a sound structure. Because the mortises are in and the mortises can't move anywhere left or right, and the same on the top, in turn that keeps these 2 mortises, or 2 tenons if you like, from moving, and it's the same that side. Once these are locked in and that's locked in and the top's in and you've got the weight on, it physically can't move left or right. Another design feature that I designed into this that I obviously wanted to utilize was that I did put a cutout in the front, and obviously this is for storage. It's not just for storage, it's for storage and to start to add weight to the workbench. So obviously for those of you that do use a lot of hand tools, saws and whatever else, planes, you'll know that sometimes you can exert a lot of force and the bench does want to move around. So obviously sometimes, most of the time, the more weight you can get on to the bench or underneath the bench to keep it in place, the better. So with that in mind, obviously that was one of the design features of this. Something else I've also done as well I've actually added some crubber to the underside of the legs. So I've only just put it down, and I was dragging the bench about a little bit just to see, you know, what the kind of, how the bench reacted, and it didn't seem too bad. So I'm hoping that when I get some tools on it and I start using it in the fashion that it's, you know, designed to be used for woodworking, I don't think I should have too much issue, and I think it's going to be a lot more steadier than the Nicholson bench. That's the hope anyway. Something else that I wanted with the bench, I wanted the bench top to be flat. So the issue with solid wood top workbenches is that they will move, and you will have to flatten them from time to time. As it just so happens, the Nicholson bench is in need of a flatten. I don't particularly think I'm going to flatten it now. I was going to flatten it, but as I said, I don't think I'm going to, because obviously I've just built this new bench. So plywood is going to be more stable than a solid wood worktop. You know, it is just how it is. So another thing that I did do is that I actually made this wider. I'm not actually sure how much wider it is. I wanted it to be a lot wider. I wanted this to be 3 foot, but I'd already cut out the base, and obviously with the sizes, and I didn't want to go out and buy any more plywood. I kind of just stuck to what it is. So the width of it is 750. So I did initially want this to be 900, which is just under 3 foot. So you know what we're looking there, it's like 6 inches shy. So you know what, I can kind of deal with it, although it would have been nice to have that little bit extra. It is a pretty decent size bench, if I'm honest. One of the things that does annoy us about the Nicholson bench, just because it's not flat and it's not particularly wide, is that in the past when I've been making chairs or tables, I haven't been able to put them on top of the bench like this, where obviously now I'm going to be able to do that, and I'm actually going to be able to flatten the legs, which is going to be so nice. So normally when let's say for instance the last table I made, I think that was the 3-legged table, I believe. Was it the 3-legged? I think it was a 3-legged table. So that had conical tenons going straight through some spalted beech, and it was rounded, or a circle if you will. And anything like that, normally I've got to take it into the house, get it wedged up, and then, you know, scribe some lines around it. But now, because I know this is flat, I can do it on here. That might sound a little bit silly, or a little bit trivial, but that's something I'm really gonna enjoy doing. I think I'm gonna call it there today, guys. I'm kind of just ravening it on. I didn't really plan to do this podcast today. It was just one of those. I thought it was, you know, interesting, because I have had a bit of interest about this bench, so I thought I would speak about it a little bit. Any questions, leave a comment, and I'll try and answer it to the best of my ability. I know I've jumped about a bit today, and I do apologise about that. But as I said, any questions, I'll try and answer it the best I can. And until the next time, I shall see and speak to you guys later.